Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Genshin Impact character analysis. Today we are looking at the man, the myth, the legend, Baizhu. The character we've all been looking forward to since his introduction in like patch 1.0 or like 1.1. He was introduced around that time as a character, very much visibly playable at some point in the game, and we've had to wait till all the way in 3.6 for him to be finally playable. And in this video, I'll be going through his character, his kit, his like skill, ultimate, passives, then into his constellations, finding out what's the best valued constellation for your, if you want to invest into him, what is the best value. After that, we're going to give my general opinions on him as a character with and without constellations. Then I'll get into his best in slot weapon, talking about his weapons and generally what's going to be good choices for him. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the artifact conversation, talking about what's potentially going to be his best in slot artifacts, and then some other good alternatives if you don't have good best in slot ones. And then at the end, I'll give my overall thoughts on the character and will he be a must-have or will you want to pull for him or is he good or whatever the hell. That general conversation that Genshin Impact players have with each other. Like, do you like this character? But it doesn't really mean anything because every character is technically viable. But now I'm rambling, but let's get into the video. Now, to start it off, we have to understand that he's a Dendro character, if you couldn't tell by all the greenery around him. He's a Dendro character, and he also uses a catalyst. Now, before we get into his actual kit, here is Ascension materials. If you want to pre-farm any of these things, just take a quick screenshot or a little picture or save the video or something like that. That's what he needs right now. These are the materials. As for these last two materials, if you can't get them, well, it's because the bosses aren't in the game. But if you can get them, well, that means the boss is in the game. This last one here isn't in the game because that's the next world boss being added, but I digress. The other materials are, this is from the fungi, this is from dendro things, this is violet grass, and a bunch of Leeway books. If you have the materials, great. If you don't, farm them up to pre-farm for him. Now, let's get into his actual kit. The basic attack is mostly irrelevant as it is just damage, so don't worry too much about it. He does have cool animations, but that's not really a point of like power, so that's that. Going on to his skill, Universal Diagnosis is quite good. Control a Gossamer sprite that cruises and attacks nearby opponents, dealing dendro damage. After it performs 3 attacks, or if there are no opponents nearby, the sprite will return, healing all party members based on Baiju's max HP. And with that, we know that he's a max HP scaler, meaning you're going to want to build max HP for his healing capabilities. But essentially, this is if you have enemies nearby, you press your E and you'll hit enemies 3 times and then it'll come back and heal you, essentially. It does that no matter what, it will always heal you, but you get the damage if there are enemies. If there are no enemies, you just get the healing. And at level 10, the damage is decent, 142% is fine, and the healing is pretty good, to be quite frank with you. So I'm going to round it up, by the way. 15% of his max HP plus 1694 for just one tap of his E at level 10 is very, very powerful, by the way, seeing as he is a max HP builder, so you're going to roughly get him to about 40k HP if you're building for healing, and 15% of that plus 1600 heal to all allies at once is very, very powerful, and this being on a 10-second cooldown is also extremely powerful, so bear that in mind that his healing from his skill is going to be the thing that you heal from the most. It's not really here for damage, at least not in my opinion. It does technically say you are performing 3 attacks, so you can time the times the skill damage by 3 to get its actual damage output, but generally speaking, I think you're going to be using this more so for the healing factor than the damage factor, because the damage factor part is going to be from his ultimate. Now, going on to the ultimate, it's a bit more to take in, so bear with me as we read it here. Holistic Revivificate. Fuck that word. Holistic Reviving enters the pulsing clarity state, creating a seamless shield that absorbs dendro damage with 250% effectiveness. Very good so far. While in this state, Baizhu will generate a new seamless shield every 2.5 seconds. So, let's understand that. He creates a shield with dendro effectiveness, because it's a dendro shield, and it always regenerates every 2.5 seconds. Very good. The seamless shield will then heal your own active character, not team, but active character, based on Baiju's max HP, and attack opponents by unleashing Spirit Veins, dealing damage under the following circumstances. Bear this in mind as we continue, is that you will get the healing, right? You'll get the healing onto the active character as well as the damage at the same time under the following circumstances. And those circumstances are when a character is under the protection of a seamless shield and a new seamless shield is generated. And the other one is when the seamless shield effects expire or when it is shattered, right? So again, you will get the healing and the damage portion of this thing, and we'll get into the percentages in just a second here. You'll get the healing and damage portion of this whenever you have a currently active shield and it gets overwritten by a new one which spawns every 2.5 seconds, or when the effect expires, essentially, or the shield is completely shattered, right? Those are the circumstances to pop the healing and damage portion of his ultimate. Bear that in mind. Now, for the actual percentage values of this, they're quite okay. So for the shield absorption, it's at level 10, 1.4% max HP plus 169. Now, this is completely understandable, as it is possible to get 5 shields in total from his ultimate, as it has a duration of 14 seconds, this buff that you do, the pulsing clarity state. It has a 14-second duration. 2.5 divided by 14 gives you 5, right? It's not a whole number, essentially. But you can get 5 shields, so you can technically times this number by 5 to give you the total shield power, but that's not an overly accurate way to do it, as it is 5 individual shields, and looking at the overall max power is not going to help you in the long run. But bear that in mind, each shield is essentially this value of your whole HP, which is fair enough if you're going to have 5 of them. I'm going to accept that. It's okay. As we found out before, the duration of the shield is 2.5 seconds, so it lines up with the refresh rate, so you can have that effect of a new one being generated whilst another one is already existing, so you can pop it. That makes sense. The next one, the seamless shield healing, is decent. 10% of his max HP plus 1,101, so it is a lot of healing there. It's going to heal your team to full, or heal at least the active character to full through all of its procs, as it is 10% plus 1,000 essentially of Baiju's max HP, which will most likely be at 40k minimum if you're building him for healing per se. If you're building him for damage, maybe it'll be at 35k, but most of the time it's going to probably be around that level. Healing for 10% of that, 5 times essentially for the active character. Most active characters that are DPS or something are going to be at like, what, 17k HP, something like that. So your character's going to be fully healed after every ultimate, which is extremely powerful, and I'll explain why it's even more powerful with constellations once we get to it. And then looking at the damage, 174%, it's fine. You get 174 times 5, so, you know, you do the math, it's almost 1k percent damage dealt, so it's pretty good. Now, the cooldown is 20 seconds, so you do have 6 seconds of downtime, but I highly doubt you're going to be wanting to press this ultimate on cooldown. It is maybe going to be potentially a last-minute save ultimate to heal an active character, or something along the lines of like that. I think in the rare situations that you are going to pop this on cooldown is when you need the damage, or you've built a damage-dealing Baizhu with a lot of energy recharge. That's going to be one of the rare situations where you pop his ultimate on cooldown, just so you get that constant flow of damage and healing onto the active character. But I think in a general situation, you're not going to be popping this on cooldown. You're going to be popping it as like a part of your combo to go into essentially a damage phase where you potentially can get damaged as well as deal damage to the enemy. Overall, by the way, the ultimate is very powerful against Dendro things, and I'll explain more so as we get near the end about synergies and whatnot, but it's very synergistic, with a lot of other characters, like, you know, the Dendro reactions, essentially, right? But that's that. Now let's drop down to the passives. Looking at passive 1, 5 Fortunes Forever, Baizhu gains different effects according to the current HP of your active character. And then the first one is, when their HP is less than 50%, Baizhu gains more healing, so you can heal them above 50% a lot quicker, fair enough. But when their HP is equal to or more than 50%, Baizhu gains 25% Dendro damage bonus, which is extremely powerful. Just for the mere act of having more than 50% HP, whilst the active character has that, you gain 25% Dendro damage bonus to Baizhu. It permanently increases your damage all across the board because he only does Dendro damage, so it's very, very powerful. That's all. That's end of story. On to passive 2. This one is the actual powerful one, though, weirdly enough. So characters who are healed by his seamless shields, which are created by his ultimate, will gain the Year of Verdant Favor effect. And then what this does is, each 1000 HP of his, or rather max HP that Baizhu possesses that does not exceed 50,000 will increase the Burning Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon reaction damage dealt by these characters by 2%, which then, if you have at 50% HP, or if you have 50,000 HP, sorry, you'll essentially do 50 times 2%, or times 2, which will then give you 100% damage increase to those reactions. And then while the aggravate and spread reaction damage dealt increased by these characters is increased by 0.8, if you do the same equation, you'll end up with 40% increase. This effect lasts 6 seconds. So in summary, if your Baizhu is at 50,000 HP, essentially, you will have 100% damage increase to these 4 reactions: Burning, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon, which is very powerful. And then at the same HP threshold, Aggravate and Spread will have a 40% damage increase. Now, the reason it's lower for Spread and Aggravate is that they are the higher scaling ones. They are the ones that fundamentally hit harder than the other ones, but the other ones are a little bit more consistent in their damage damage output consistency. It's a lot higher than that. So, yeah. But again, this happens while after you've been healed by Seamless Shield, so it's during his ultimate, and that's why you'll pop this during your damage phase instead of popping it on cooldown, because you want to save it for when you're actually going to deal damage, because it's quite a strong effect. And then going on to his third passive, Herbal Nourishment, whenever you pick up an item in the open world, the active character heals for 2.5% max HP of Baiju's. It's quite useless. It's not really worth noting, because you're going to forget about it almost immediately, because you're not going to actually utilize it, because you just go to a Shrine of the Seven and you full heal your whole team. There it is. And the character baseline, by the way, is pretty powerful, purely because of this passive. This makes him not a must-have character, but it makes him an extremely potent character for any of these reactions. Specifically, if your team does Burning, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon. And this is where I'll talk about the synergies. So if we're just looking at these, potentially comboing Nahida's C2 with Burning damage increase here, you could actually probably make a Burning team, because Nahida's C2 allows her to actually make Burning crit, and it also doesn't increase damage. And getting Baizhu, well, it makes, Burning deal more damage, so you can actually probably build a Burning team. Going on to Bloom, well, you can probably do a Nilo build here and actually get a lot more damage throughput, as he is a Dendro character, and Nilo's build, the whatever her thing is called, the I forgot what they're called, I do apologize, her little specific bulbs that explode only work if you have Dendro and Hydro. So having one of the Dendro characters be a healer, and also at that point a guy who applies a shield or Dendro damage and all these other effects, as well as this Bloom damage increase, is extremely powerful. And then Hyper Bloom, again, obviously if you run the same kind of build, but then also have an electric character, and then vice versa with Burgeon if you have a pyro character, very powerful. And then Aggravate and Spread, they're already powerful as is, and just simply adding Baizhu to the team, giving yourself a total potential damage boost of 40% to these reactions is incredibly potent. So Baizhu doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a must-have character for these teams, because he doesn't fundamentally change how they play and fundamentally make them more powerful, but this damage boost is going to make a massive difference if you want to try to hit a higher echelon of damage with these reactions. Bear that in mind. Not a must-have, but extremely powerful. And that's kind of the core part of his kit. Everything else is kind of okay, right? He gets a lot of healing through a lot of his other kit. If you want the highest throughput of solo healing, then that's the burst. If you want AoE healing for the team, then you go for the skill. It's simple as that. You can build it from damage, and I think other people have speculated that you can build it for higher damage, and most likely you can, because in Genshin you can build every character for damage, but will you want to? It's up to you, really. I would recommend doing some sort of hybrid build built towards more healing than damage. That's how I would build him if I was rolling on him. I would go for a bit more of a hybrid, but lent a bit more towards healing than attack. But yeah, it'll be like a 70-30 split between healing and attack. That's how I would build him. But other than that, he's quite okay. Where he does increase in value very exponentially, and it's a very rapid rise in value increase, is in his constellations. So let's take a look at those now. Starting off with Constellation 1, Universal Diagnosis has one additional charge. That's his skill. The reason this one's actually pretty powerful is because you can essentially flash heal your whole team extremely quickly. Your team drops down very low in HP, let's say through some sort of bleed mechanic, through the wolves or whatever. You go to Baizhu, press E twice, boom, boom, you're healed fully, essentially, right? Because if we go back to the talent, 15% of Baiju's max HP 2 times in a row, your team's full HP now, right? It's as simple as that. That's the end of the story. So, Constellation 1, already very powerful. Constellation 2, again, is also very, very powerful, and this is why I said it's a very rapid rise in power with Constellations. When your own active character hits a nearby opponent with their attacks, Baizhu will unleash a Gossamer Sprite Splice. Now, what this does is it will initiate one attack before returning, dealing 250% of Baiju's attack as Dendro damage, and healing for 20% of Universal Diagnosis' Gossamer Sprite's normal healing. Damage dealt this way is considered elemental skill. It can only be triggered once every 5 seconds. Let's summarize that. So just by having his Constellation 2, you have an automatic trigger of his skill every 5 seconds, no matter which active character is attacking. That is essentially what this is. Now, the damage is at a specific percentage of his attack, and his healing is 20% of what his actual skill heals. But the fact that it's an automatic trigger that happens every 5 seconds whilst you're attacking is something that we need to note down as we go further into the constellations. But other than that, it's quite good. You have passive healing, passive damage, and passive Dendro application every 5 seconds, no matter what you're doing. End of story. We don't have his Constellation 3 or 5 yet, so I won't try to talk about those. Constellation 4, for 15 seconds after you cast his ultimate is used, Baizhu will increase all nearby party members' elemental mastery by 80. It's okay, it's fine, literally nothing to really go home about. You just get an elemental mastery increase. It just works for him because it's a reaction character, so increasing everyone's elemental mastery makes all reactions more powerful. End of story. Now C6, and this one I'll go through slowly, and I'll also summarize at the end, but this is the powerhouse of the cell. This is the mitochondria, boys. Elimination of malicious chi. Increase the damage dealt by his ultimate, Spirit Veins, by 8% of his max HP. Essentially, makes his ultimate higher damage scaling based on max HP, gives him higher scaling, end of story, makes the character better. Then additionally, when a Gossamer Sprite or, keyword or, Gossamer Sprite Splice hits an opponent, there is a 100% chance of generating one of his ultimate's seamless shields. This effect can only be triggered once by each Gossamer Sprite or Gossamer Sprite Splice. If everyone caught that, and if you guys thought about it for just one moment, you'll notice how very fucking strong that is. Just very fucking overpowered that is. So, let me summarize again. The first part, this part right here, gives his ultimate HP scaling in terms of damage, immediately increasing his damage by a fuck ton, right? Because you're going to be at least 50k at this point, right? So that's great. And then additionally, when his skill, right, his Gossamer Sprite, which is from his skill, or his Gossamer Sprite Splice, which is from his C2, hits an opponent, there's a 100% chance of generating one of his ultimate's seamless shields. Now, you may be asking, why is that overpowered? Well, you essentially have not a permanent ultimate, but a free ultimate shield every 5 seconds. Not every 2.5 seconds, because it's a 5-second cooldown. Every 5 seconds, you have a free shield from his ultimate, which will do what his ultimate does, right? So it's essentially saying you don't have to use his ultimate to use his ultimate, right? And that's what it does. You will get all the benefits of using his ultimate from C6. And one of those benefits from using his ultimate, if we go back to his talent and go down to his passives, is this damage increase. So, in a sense, what I'm saying is that you don't need his ultimate to use his ultimate. Very powerful. A very, very powerful Constellation 6. In theory, at least. If that's how it works in the game, I don't know, by the way. I haven't played the character. I have no way of playing the character, and my Hoyo won't let me play the character, right? But if, in theory, that is how it works, his C6 is probably the strongest in the game in terms of a raw use kind of way. You know, like, this is just, like, fundamentally useful. Like value-wise as well, it's incredible. So, in that regard right there, in theory, and in the current way that I'm portraying it, it's incredibly powerful. And how it's worded also goes to show that it is incredibly powerful. Now, if it ends up being this way, that's even better. I fucking love that. And if you do get a C6 Baizhu by any rare stretch of the means that you do a 10 pull and get 7 of him in one pull, congratulations, you now have an incredibly powerful character that you will never die with, right? Because you also have to understand that his ultimate also provides a shield, not just the healing and the damage boosting. It's also a shield. So you essentially have like an infinite Zhongli character. But it is what it is. Those are his constellations. And usually I say, what is his highest value one? Well, here's the thing. They're all incredibly high value. right? They are all really good. Now, C4 is the lowest value. That's fundamentally true. C4 is the lowest value. It does give you elemental mastery, but that's all it is. It's just elemental mastery. And at this point, you kind of don't need it. Like, it is a bonus, but you don't really need it. I guess it does, like, if you want to give another character another stat instead of elemental mastery, that's fine. But the other ones are a lot more useful. His C1 lets him like flash heal his whole team to full HP if he needs to. His C2 is a fundamental part of his kit in terms of consistency and dendro application, healing and whatnot, and just being a passive character. And then his C6 is just the cream of the crop, the fucking cherry on top, dude, of being overpowered. So if I was to gauge it, C2 is going to be his best value because it's only 2 constellations. You get one value over one value after another. Sorry, and then after that you kind of have diminishing value with C4. But then if you do manage to get into C6, you have an incredibly powerful unit. But C2 is my recommendation for the character, as C4 is not powerful enough to warrant going for it. And that's the character like that. He's very powerful, very good, and overall a solid unit no matter how you get him. C0, C6, C1, no matter how you get him, he's very powerful. But now, let's talk about his weapon. Now, going onto his weapon, I've moved myself over here so you guys have space to actually see the little catalyst here. It's a catalyst. Now, this is his signature catalyst, Jade Falls Splendor. It is the Jade series of weapons being expanded a bit more, and it looks absolutely immaculate. I love the design, it looks great. But talking about the actual weapon here, base 608 attack, which is standard, and it has 50% essentially HP. Right, 50% HP increase, which is, I don't know why they just didn't put 50. I don't like it when they do weird decimal places, but it's 49.6 or rounded up to 50%, which is very good. It's going to make him be able to hit those higher HP thresholds, and it's going to really matter when you get into its ability, which is the Primordial Jade Regalia, or Regalia, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but yeah, that thing. So, let's get through it. For 3 seconds after using an elemental burst, or creating a shield, right, specifically, it's in line with his C6. You can either press his elemental burst, or you can just create a shield from nothing, right? The equipping character can gain the Primordial Jade Regalia effect. Restore 4.5 energy every 2.5 seconds, and gain 0.3 elemental damage bonus for their corresponding elemental type for every 1000 HP they possess, or max HP, sorry, they possess, up to 12%. Now, the quick maths for that is 12 divided by 0.3, which equals 40. So you're going to need 40 iterations of 1000 or 40,000 max HP minimum to get the full 12% from this. It's not too hard to get that, to be quite frank with you, if you build him with the weapon. So with the weapon in mind, it's easy to get. That is great. And then the Primordial Jade Regalia will still take effect even if the equipping character is not on the field. Incredibly powerful, by the way. Incredibly powerful. Now, let's just again break it down for 3 seconds, right? So you're only going to get 1 proc of the energy restoration, as well as essentially this thing. You're going to get it for 3 seconds. So you're going to have to constantly be ticking it off and on. It's going to be most effective with his ultimate. It's not going to be most effective with C6, but it does work with C6. So for 3 seconds after using an elemental burst, creating a shield. And so for those full 14 seconds after you cast his ultimate, you have these effects permanently, right? You have these effects permanently because your shield is refreshing every 2.5 seconds, and this is says for 3 seconds, and it's obviously a refreshable effect because it doesn't say not refreshable or refreshable, so you assume that it is refreshable. End of story. So you regen 4.5 energy after you use his ultimate. Well, let's just do the quick maths there. 4.5 energy every 2.5 seconds. That means that you get like 5 procs of 4.5. And if I dial that into my little calculator here, 4.5 times 5, you get a 22 energy refund just from merely casting his ultimate. So it reduces his ultimate cost pretty much down from 80 to 60, which is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. And then obviously you get the massive damage bonus of 12% to his corresponding element, which is also fine. But yes, that is his weapon. This is going to be his best in slot because of HP scaling as well as the whole effect. It's an incredible effect. Now, will this weapon be useful in other characters? 100%, but that's a different conversation. This is his best in slot. But if we're looking at other weapons that he may also be good to use, pretty much any of the like universal damage dealing weapons. If you want to use Kagura's Verity, it's fine. Obviously, you kind of want to be able to use your skill multiple times, and obviously this will gain more potency with something like with his C1. And if you want to use this is obviously for pure damage I'm talking about. If you're looking for pure damage, Kagura's Verity is a great option. You can go for healing. Everlasting Moonglow will not be a bad one. It's just more healing and HP scaling at the same time. Obviously, you gain a bit of damage to his normal attack, which is not going to be overly helpful. But again, the raw HP and healing bonus is going to make his healing just fine. You're obviously going to lose a bit of that energy regen from the other one. But it's okay. It's, again, for raw healing, this one is fine. Talatulia's Remembrance, probably not. This one's just damage, but it does have crit damage on it, so if you are in dire straits and you really need something, it's not going to be a terrible choice if you want to build in for damage, but again, nowhere near optimal as it's centered around normal attack speed and normal attacking, but the 44% crit damage may be helpful if you really desperately need it. More so for damage, Memory of Dust is fine. It's an attack increase and shield strength increase, so his shield from his ultimate will be a bit more powerful, but it's also centered around being a damage dealer, so bear that in mind. It's going to be a bit more for like if you're building him as a DPS. Again, not what I'd recommend, but again, it's still fine if you really if it's the only these are hypotheticals in the sense that if it's your only weapon available. If that is the case, it's fine to use it. It really is. It's fine. And all the I'll summarize it. All the 5 stars are fucking fine. If you have any of the 5 stars, you can slap it on him and you'll be fine. 1,000 Years of Dreaming Floating, it's Elemental Mastery, it's fine. It's more damage, that's all it is. All the 5 stars are fine. Now, as for 4 stars, it's a bit more finicky. It's really a bit more finicky. Now, blatantly speaking, Sacrificial series is never a bad series of weapons to go with. Sacrificial Fragments is going to be an absolutely fine weapon. It's Elemental Mastery with after damaging an opponent with his skill. The skill has a 40% chance to end its own cooldown. Obviously, if you put that at Refinement 5, it's 80% chance. So it essentially kind of gives you 2 copies of his skill, kind of like his C1. So this is an absolutely fine one. All of the Sacrificial series is always fine to use. Bear that in mind. So if you do have this, and it's your only choice, go for it. No harm done here. For raw healing potency, out of the 4 stars, the Prototype Amber is most likely going to give you the highest bang for your buck, as it is a HP scaling one with 41.3% HP on it, as well as after using your Elemental Burst, regenerate some energy every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, and all party members will regenerate a certain percentage HP every 2 seconds for this duration, which is at 4, and then obviously at R5, which a lot of players obviously have it, 6 energy every 2 seconds, and then 6% HP every 2 seconds for this duration. This one for raw healing potency is most likely going to be your best in slot. As for gameplay fluidity and energy recharge, it's going to be decent. You get a bit of energy recharge back. You get about 18 energy back. So it kind of does refund roughly the same amount as his actual signature, but bear in mind it's not exactly the same. So this is still probably going to be your best for healing potency. And after that, it really kind of just depends on what you have available. Any of the DPS ones are kind of fine to use for DPS purposes. If you want to use the Solar Pearl, which is obviously the Battle Pass one, it's fine for DPS. It's crit rate, so you'll have a great time. It buffs certain other areas of his kit. It's fine. The DPS portion of this character is just any DPS weapon that you have available is absolutely fine. Out of the 4-star category, nothing really pulls ahead of the other one because he's a bit of a weird damage dealer. Essentially, attack increase is the most that you can get out of him unless you go for crit rate or crit damage. He has no other scaling in terms of damage at like the lower end unless you have C6 at least, where it gives HP damage scaling to his ultimate. So it's all about attack, crit rate, and crit damage. So any ratio of those usually going for higher crit damage, then crit rate, and then attack percentage. That'll usually net you the highest damage. And then, like I said, as for healing potency and kind of gameplay fluidity, Sacrificial Fragments is usually the go-to for that one. With gameplay fluidity, healing potency is going to be Prototype Amber. And luckily for that one, Prototype Amber is the craftable from Mondstadt, so that's still going to give you the highest bang for your buck. And with that, that's kind of all the weapons that I'd recommend. Best in slot is going to be his signature Jade Force Splendor, and roughly the best 4 stars Prototype Amber, but it also depends on kind of what you're going for. Now, finally going on to artifacts. This area is an area of massive subjective opinion stuff based, essentially. It really depends, again, like a lot of things, what you're going for, because there's a lot of options. Now, If you're going for, let's say, damage, I want to get that one straight out of the gate, done and dusted. If you're going for damage and you also want him to be a bit more of, like, obviously the character's not built for main DPS role, you can't have him be that. But if you want him to deal higher damage as well as be essentially the Dendro Res Shredder on the team, the easy solution is 4-set Deep Wood, what's it called again? Deep Wood Memories. 2-set 15% Dendro, and then 4-set Dendro Res decrease by 30 when your skill or burst hit the enemy for 8 seconds. It can also happen if the character is not on the field, right? So this is going to be his best if you're going for a bit more of a damage-orientated build, and sort of support per se, right? That's going to be that build. And it's universally, it's going to be his easiest to just slap on, right? Because it's the elemental set bonuses, right? It's the elemental artifact. Now, if you want to get a bit more technical and a bit more mathematical, the next one I'm going to recommend is 2-set Tenacity of the Millelith. That is a HP increase by 20%. And then it's going to be the new artifact being added in 3.6, which is the Varukasha's Glow. Again, pronunciation is definitely my strong suit, so we're going to go with Varukasha's Glow. And I'm going to recommend the 2-set of this one as well, which is also another 20% HP increase. Now, the reason I recommend the 2-set of this one and the 2-set of Tenacity is because it's HP bonus. And let's say you have some decent pieces with other main stats in these ones, it's better to kind of get the HP percentage increase through the set bonuses because it's quite a chunky amount of 20% per 2-set to a total of 40% if you have both 2 sets. You can kind of get that done and dusted if you have some decent main stat stuff from these ones. If you have, you know, a crown with crit damage and good crit rate stats on the crown piece of this, and then slap that on with some other piece that's decent as well. And then the same thing with Varukasha's Glow, do that same thing. The 4-set of the 2 new artifacts doesn't really play with Baizhu, unfortunately. The 4-set of this one is elemental skill and burst damage will increase by 10 after taking damage. Increase the damage bonus by 80%, stacking up to 5 times. So you can get a pretty crazy damage increase. But again, you're not taking damage with Baizhu, right? Because, well, you're not. You're healing and you're applying a shield to yourself. So actually taking damage is quite tough. Now, this is kind of dependent on what team you're going for. If you're going for like a Bloom team, you can take damage. It is quite easy to take damage because you just do. But again, that's a very subjective area. You know, it's if you're going for that, you can, but it's a very subjective thing. So I'm not going to wholeheartedly recommend it, as you may run a completely different thing and I can be proven wrong. So universally, I'm not going to recommend the 4-set as it's very situational. So read into it and just kind of try to understand what your team does to you and can you trigger the effects. If you do some self-damage too, obviously, as I said at the end, it says these effects can be triggered even when the equipping character is not on the field because the active character just has to take some damage. So, like, you know, specific characters like something like, I don't know, Xiao you could do it with, but again, subjective area, subjective sceneries. So yeah, if you do take damage, you can run this one. If you don't take damage, try not to run this one. But yes, initially the recommendation is 2-set Tenacity with 2-set of Varukashas, as it can give you a bit more freedom with, you know, with your builds in terms of the main stats and substats. But that's that. Now, another thing to recommend, if you're going for a bit more healing potency and a bit more like damage through your healing phases, you can go for the Ocean-Hued Clam 4-set. Now, this is about, you know, reading the whole Harry Potter series to get through the 4-piece, so I'm not going to read it, but you get a healing bonus, and then you, when you heal a certain thing called like a cloud or some bullshit, it'll explode, dealing a certain percentage of the amount that you healed as damage. I'm not going to fucking read it because Mihoyo likes to make, you know, it likes to write the whole Harry Potter 9 of the books or whatever as one of the 4-set bonuses, which is absolutely ridiculous, but that's roughly what it does. You just heal, and that healing gets converted to damage at a certain point. You can run this one if you want for more healing potency, as it does that 2-set healing, or you can mix and match the 2-set healing bonus set with any of the 2-set HP bonus sets, as that will also work, and it will increase your scaling as well as your general healing. Other than that, we go back to the generic stuff. You got Maiden Beloved for more healing potency and Ocean-Hued Clam for more healing potency. Those two sets give you a healing bonus increase. That's great. Emblem of Severed Fate gives you more energy recharge, so you can always go for that one. If you're like tight for energy, again, it's a very, very subjective area. But my easiest recommendation is going to be Deepwood Memories for your damage kind of character if you're building in for a bit more damage support. And if you're going for a bit more healing, it's just easiest for me, and honestly, easiest for everyone to just slap on Tenacity and the new 2 set, because obviously not a lot of people are going to have this one as it launches in 3.6, but I think my point still stands that it's going to be quite easy to obtain, and you just need a 2 set of it, so you just need 2 decent pieces, so it's not going to be too difficult. You don't need a 4 set or anything like that, so play around with those 2, or those 3 artifact sets rather, play around with them, and try to find what fits better for what you are trying to get the character to do. As for stat priority, again, depends on what you're going for. If you're going for healing, HP is going to be his main one. Get it up to 50,000. 50,000 is going to be, I think, the threshold if you're going to full gear him. If you're getting him up, if you're getting his, like, weapon as well as trying to get the most potential, 50k HP is going to be like the bare minimum. That's going to be the stopping point of his value. And then kind of go into healing bonus or kind of small attack boosts here and there. But if you're going for a full DPS build, then it's obviously going to be the classic crit damage, crit rate, attack percentage. The characters like that don't ever change. He's not an elemental mastery scaler. He's nothing like that. So yeah, those are the 2 stat priorities. You can go for HP as much as you can, up to 50k, and then some sort of attack bonus just for a small bit of damage boosting. And then for the DPS, you just go for crit damage, crit rate, attack in that order, like a classic character. That's all it is, right? And that's as simple as the character is, right? That's Baizhu. That's everything to do with this character. This has been quite a lengthy video, as I kind of went fairly in depth with the character. A lot more than I would generally do. I generally do a general overview, but this time I really want to emphasize how powerful and game-changing this character can be if you do get him and you get certain levels of him, but then also want to outline that he also isn't a must-have. He does change the game, but he's not a must-have because he doesn't fundamentally change how certain things happen. It's just his value in itself is quite high. And that's Baizhu. Hope you guys did enjoy. The character is coming out in the near future. I believe this is coming out. I'm recording this a few days before it should come out, but this video should be coming out right after the special program. We should have learned a lot about the characters and a lot of the release stuff. And so the character should be coming out at the launch of 3.6. If you do roll for him, good luck on your rolls. Hope you get him in the first 10 pull that you do. If you don't get him then I hope it's the very next single pull. Have a great day, guys. Stay safe, and catch you guys in the next character analysis. Peace out.